Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel, Numbers with Nora. This is a math tutoring channel that helps you with all your math homework and needs. For this specific video, I'm just going to do some quick problems dealing with Algebra 2 and Trig. These are going to be dealing with graphing conics, and I'm just going to focus on doing A, B, and C. If you need review on these, leave a comment. I have lots of notes and videos that can help you, as well as what we're doing here. But right now, I'm just going to focus on doing these problems. So let's start with A. The first thing we want to do is identify if A is a parabola, ellipse, hyperbola. So for this one, if we just look at it, we know it's going to be a parabola, but we can also do our test, okay, where we can sit there and see if our A times C, if our A times C is equal to 0. Sorry. A times C is equal to 0. Right? My A and my C are my coefficients of my y squared and my x squared. My y squared coefficient is 1. I don't have an x squared coefficient, so that's 0. So 1 times 0 is 0. That checks off. It's going to be a parabola for A. Okay? Next, let's sit there and find its vertex because they want us to find the vertex. To find the vertex of a parabola, for this one, we sit there and notice that our vertex is going to be 0, 0. And that's just by looking at our parent function of a parabola, okay? So our parent function of a parabola, if you forgot, is going to be y squared equals 4xp. And that 4 is part of the formula. All right. And notice I have nothing being added or subtracted from both my x and my y. So I know easily that this is going to be my vertex. Okay. Next, they want us to find our foci. To find our foci for a parabola, since I know it's going to sit there and open left or right, I know I'm going to be manipulating my x, okay? Because if I know it's opening left or right, then I know I'm dealing with my x-axis. So the formula to find the foci is going to be h plus p, where h is our x of our vertex. Oops, I don't know why that drew a heart. P. And then k, where k is our y of our vertex. Okay. All right. So we just go ahead and plug that in. We know h is 0. And we know our p, right? So 4p is going to be multiplied by this 4. So let's think of a different way to write this negative 16x by pulling a 4 out. If we do want to sit there and write that, it's going to be y squared equals, that 4 has to be there. 4 times negative 4 will give me negative 16. Okay. And then multiply by that x. So this is my p. Okay. My p is negative 4. All right. So that's negative 4. And then comma, we know our k is 0. So our foci for this one is just going to be negative 4, 0, comma 0. All right. And I'll graph everything at the end. Let's just get all this stuff done. The axis of symmetry, I'll sit there and show you how to do that after we sit there and get everything on the graph. But usually your axis of symmetry, we know it's going to sit there and be on a y equals because, like I said, we're opening left and right. Okay. But I'll show you that one, the axis of symmetry, after we sit there and graph it. And then our directs, I'll just put D for directs. How we sit there and find the directs of a parabola. The formula for that is going to be x equals k minus p. Okay. And so we know our k is going to be 0. And we know our P is going to be -4. So negative is part of that formula, so -4. So then we know that our directs, and our directs is a line, okay, equals 4. All right. So let's go ahead and graph this and see what we have. Our vertex is 0, 0. That's our vertex, right? And then we sit there and we have our foci, right? Which is -4, 0. So -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. And we know that our parabola opens towards our foci. So we know it's going to sit there and open this way. Like that. Okay. Good. Now our directs is a line. It's going to be equal to +4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's just a line. That's going to be right behind your parabola. Okay, so that's our directs. All right. And then our line of symmetry. So our line of symmetry is basically what cuts our parabola in half. If you can sit there and see this line right here, that's going to be our line of symmetry. And that line of symmetry is at y = 0. Okay. So y = 0 is going to be our axis of symmetry for this one. Okay. If you have any questions on, that was A. If you have any questions on this, leave a comment and I can explain more in depth. Like I said, this video is just trying to give you the answers for A, B, and C. Okay. Let me go ahead and erase this. I guess I should use a bigger eraser. Okay. Sorry. All right. So let's go ahead and do B now. I think that's clean enough. Okay. Yeah. Let's do B. All right, this one again. Now, looking at this one, we know by just looking at it, it's going to be a parabola because, like I said, only one of our variables is squared. And so we know it's going to be a parabola. But if you did know that, we can sit there and do the test where we test our A and our C. And remember, our A and our C are part of our generic form of a conic. So it's going to be our coefficients of my x squared and my y squared. Okay. So then I know my A times C. That's going to equal, I know one of my coefficients is 1. The other one, I don't have one, so I know it's going to be 0. So that means my A times Z equals 0. So I know B for sure is going to be a parabola, okay? Just from that test. Now let's go ahead and find the vertex. To find the vertex for this one is fairly simple because I don't see anything being added or subtracted from my X or my Y. So I know that my vertex is going to be 0, 0. Okay, so found the vertex. Now we have to find the foci. To find the foci of the parabola. Now this one's going to be a little different from A because notice that our x squared is here. So we notice this parabola is going to open either up or down, okay? Most likely it's going to open up because I see that this is not a negative. So keep that in mind. We are going to have a parabola that is opening up, right? So that means our foci is going to sit there and either be on the y-axis, up or down on the y-axis, right? So when we find the foci, our formula for that is going to be h, which is our x of our vertex. But this time we're messing with the y's, okay? So this is going to be k plus p. Plus p. All right. So if we sit there and fill in everything for that, we know h is 0. K is 0. And our p, just like I sat there and said, our let me do x squared. Our formula for a parabola or a parent formula is going to be x squared equals for yp in this case. Oops, don't shut me out. Okay, sorry. And so for this one, we notice we have an 8. What times 4 can give me 8? That's going to be 2. Okay, so P is going to be 2. So this is going to be plus 2. Right? So our foci is going to be 0, 2. Okay. All right, and that's good. And like I said, I'll graph everything at the end. I always like sitting there looking at my axis of symmetry at the end. For other ones, I'll sit there and show you a formula for it when you can't really graph it. But I'll do that one on the next videos. So we found our vertex, our foci, and now we have to find our directs. So for that one, again, remember our directs is going to be a line. So that line is going to be y equals k minus p. That's the formula for that. Our k is 0. So I'm just going to have y equals -2 as my directs. Okay. Now remember, for this one, we use x equals k minus p. Okay, so be careful if you're opening up or down or left or right. So now we're okay to sit there and start graphing. We know we're at 0, 0. My foci is 0, 2, which would be like around here. So that's my foci. Our parabola is going to open towards our foci, so it looks something like that. Our directs is -2, so down 2. It's going to be right around here. Okay. And then our axis of symmetry is just where we cut our graph in half. That's actually going to be at x equals 0. Boop, 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 like that. Okay, so that's our axis of symmetry is x equals 0. X equals 0. All right, so we answered everything they wanted for our parabola for B. Now let's go ahead and do C really quickly. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this because I'm going to erase it so I can do the other ones if you are following. Okay. Just make sure all this stuff goes away. All right, let's go ahead and do C. All right, C. So this one's going to be a little different, right? So some things I like to notice so far is that I'm going to have 2 variables that are squared. So I know it's not going to be a parabola. Also, I notice I have this negative right here. I'm thinking it could be a hyperbola because hyperbolas usually have that minus sign in between. They're 2 variables. So those are things that I kind of notice right before I just jump in and start doing stuff. Okay. So for this one, I know it's not going to be a parabola, right? So let me get rid of those. Let's go ahead and do our test, right? So my A coefficient times my C coefficient, let's see what we get. My A coefficient is going to be 1. My other coefficient is going to be -1. 1 times -1 is going to be -1. -1 is less than 0, okay? Now, I did this on another lesson. Again, leave in the comments if you don't understand this one. But here's the rules or the tests that we do. So we sat there and found out that our A times C is less than 0. So that means it's going to be a hyperbola. Okay. So we know this one's going to be a hyperbola. So now, since it's a hyperbola, they want us, excuse me, to give the center. All right. So let's give them the center. Remember, the basic formula for hyperbola is x minus h. X minus h squared. minus y minus k squared over a squared and over b squared, right? Okay, so that's the basics of a hyperbola, but for our center, notice our center is always h and k, but in this case, we're not adding or subtracting our x squared from anything. We're not adding or subtracting our y squared from anything. So our center is just going to be 0, 0. Okay. There's no shifts or anything going on with this one. So that's our center. Next, they want us to find the vertices. So let's do that next. All right, so to find our vertices, that means we're going to have a formula for that as well. But notice that my a squared is under my x. So I know they call it the, what is it? The transverse axis. That's the axis that holds all of our foci, our vertices, and all that stuff. So I know since my a squared is under my x, I know those are going to be on my x-axis somewhere. Okay, so I'm manipulating my x-axis, which means my vertices. I'm going to sit there and do h plus or minus my a. Okay. Now, if my a was under my y, then I would do h, comma, and then mess with my y coordinates. Okay. And so this one is going to be k. Yeah, sorry. All right, so let's plug in our coefficient or our variables. So this one, our h in this case is going to be 0, right? And then plus or minus. My a for this one, remember it's a squared. So 25 squared or 25, the square of 25 is 5. So that means my a is actually going to be 5. That's my a. And then 1 squared is just 1. So whatever's being squared, that's your b, just so you know. Okay. B. And I just put this over 1. That's how I know. Okay. So our a is 5, so 5. And this is 0. So I know my vertice is just going to be plus or minus 5, comma 0. Okay. That's nice. Boop. All right, so we found the center, vertex, foci. Let's go ahead and find the foci. To find the foci, there is a formula for that one when we sit there and use hyperbolas. Our foci is just c, right? So we can sit there and say c squared equals a squared plus b squared, right? And so we can sit there and plug these in because we do have our a and our b. So that means c squared is just going to equal our a is 5. So square that, that's 25. Our b is 1, which is 1 squared is 1. That's just going to be 1. So our foci is actually going to be, we square root both sides because c is squared. C is going to equal plus or minus square root of 26. Okay. But remember, our foci are points, and our points are all going to lay on our x-axis, right? Because our a is under our x. So I know these are going to be points on the x-axis. So those 2 points are going to be square root of 26, comma 0, and negative square root of 26, comma 0. Okay. So those are my 2 foci. We're going to graph this at the end. Let's see what else they're asking for. My isotopes. All right, so let's find the isotopes. I'm going to do that over here. There is a formula for that as well. I'm just going to put A for isotopes. The formula for that is going to be Y equals K. Y equals K plus or minus B over A. And then in parentheses, X minus H. Okay. Now, if this was not, if my A squared was not over my X, then, and it was actually over my Y, then I would swap my A and B. Okay. And I'll do an example like that again if you guys sit there and request any more of these to be done. So let's go ahead and plug in everything we have. So Y equals, my K is 0, plus or minus, my B is 1, my A is 5. And then if I just to save time, if I sit there, my H is 0 as well. But if I sit there and use the distributive property, I just get X right here. So that means I have two lines, all right? One of my lines are going to be Y equals 1 over 5X. And we'll graph that on our line or on our graph. Okay. And the other one is going to be Y equals negative 1 over 5. Over 5X. Okay. So those are our two isotopes. So let's go ahead and do like a little funky graph because I don't have a special one on here. And I'll sit there and probably graph it on Desmos too, just to show you guys. All right, so my center is 0, 0. Got it. My vertices are going to be plus 5, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's one vertice. Okay. And negative 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my other vertice. Cool. Then I have my foci, square root of 26. Square root of 26 turns out to be a decimal. I think it's like 5.09 something. So that's going to be in both directions. So my foci are, I'm just guessing where they're going to be a little bit. It's going to be like right here, a little bit over here. That's my foci. Right. And then next, let's graph our isotopes. So remember from Algebra 1, how we just do rise over run. All right. So this is going to start in the center. So I'm going to go up 1 and then over 5. So that's 1 point. I can do the opposite to find another point. I can go down 1. All right. And then to the left 5, which is like over here somewhere. Right. So it's going to look kind of like that for one isotope. And that's the Y equals. Hopefully your teachers give you graphing paper so you guys can see it a little bit clearer. All right, now I have to graph this one. That's negative 1. So negative 1 over 5. I can do rise over run again. So go down 1, run over 5. That's here. Or I can go up 1, run over 5. That's right here. So that's like kind of what my isotopes are going to look like. Okay, that's Y equals negative 1 over 5X. Okay. And so they're going to open kind of like this. It's going to look something like this. Okay. All right. And that's our hyperbola. All right. It would look a lot neater if I had graphing calculator or paper. But all right, guys. So that's the end of this video for this one. I'll probably do some more problems on Algebra 2 Trig Honors worksheets that I got. But again, remember this channel is free math help. If you are stuck on homework problems or you have a really hard math question that you don't know how to get, just send it to me in the comments of a picture of it, and I'll sit there and do it for you step by step. Okay. Thank you, guys.